Nestled in the heart of the Scottish Highlands lies a deep, dark body of water concealing a great mystery of our time, the legendary Loch Ness Monster. But what exactly is the Loch Ness Monster? Is it a living fossil, a giant fish, a hoax, or perhaps something else entirely? Join us in a dive into the murky waters of Loch Ness to explore the origins, sightings, theories, and cultural impact of this world-famous cryptid. The story of the Loch Ness Monster, affectionately known as Nessie, doesn't begin in the 20th century. Its roots stretch back over 1,500 years, intertwining with Celtic folklore and early Christianity. The first recorded sighting of a strange creature in Loch Ness dates back to the 6th century. According to the biography of Saint Columba, the Irish missionary encountered a large beast in the River Ness in 565 AD. The text describes how Columba saved a man from being attacked by a water beast by making the sign of the cross and commanding the creature to go back. This early account set the stage for centuries of local legends and folklore surrounding the loch. However, it wasn't until the 1930s that the Loch Ness Monster as we know it today burst onto the world stage. The modern legend of Nessie began on May 2, 1933, when the Inverness Courier published an article about a local couple who claimed to have seen an enormous animal rolling and plunging on the surface of the loch. The story caught the imagination of the public and the press, leading to a frenzy of subsequent sightings. But it was a photograph taken in 1934 that would cement Nessie's place in the public consciousness. Known as the surgeon's photograph, this image appeared to show the head and neck of a plesiosaur-like creature emerging from the water. For decades, this photograph was considered the most compelling evidence of the monster's existence. However, the surgeon's photograph would later be revealed as an elaborate hoax. However, its impact on the Loch Ness Monster legend was indelible, shaping how generations would imagine the creature. To understand the legend of the Loch Ness Monster, we should also understand Loch Ness itself. Loch Ness is the second largest Scottish loch by surface area at 22 square miles, but its depth is something else. Plunging to a depth of 955 feet at its deepest point, it contains more fresh water than all the lakes in England and Wales combined. This immense volume of water is also notoriously murky. Peat washed down from the surrounding hills stains the water a dark, tea-like color. Visibility is very limited, even in the clearest conditions. It's this combination of depth and murkiness that has led some to speculate that a large, unknown creature could potentially live in Loch Ness undetected. Geographically, Loch Ness sits along the Great Glen Fault, a massive fracture in the Earth's crust that runs across Scotland, with researchers speculating that underwater caves or tunnels could potentially provide hidden habitats. The loch's ecosystem is also unique. Despite its size, Loch Ness supports relatively little life compared to other lakes. The reasons for this are complex, involving factors like low nutrient levels and limited sunlight penetration due to the water's darkness. This relative scarcity of life has led some to question how a large predator could survive there. Yet, it's perhaps these very characteristics, the great size, the murkiness, the changeable conditions, and the air of mystery, that make Loch Ness the perfect lair for a creature of legend. Over the years, hundreds of people have claimed to have seen the Loch Ness Monster. These eyewitness accounts range from brief ambiguous sightings to highly detailed descriptions. We've already mentioned the sighting that sparked the modern Loch Ness Monster craze, the Mackay's account in 1933. Aldi Mackay and her husband John claimed to have seen an enormous animal rolling and plunging on the surface. Mrs. Mackay described it as having a body like a whale and a long tapering neck. Just 2 months later, in July 1933, George Spicer and his wife were driving along the loch when they saw what they described as a most extraordinary form of animal cross the road in front of their car. Spicer said it had a long neck, a large body, and high back. This sighting is notable because it occurred on land, suggesting the creature could move between water and land. In November 1933, Hugh Gray captured what is considered the first photograph of the Loch Ness Monster. The image, though blurry, appears to show a large creature with a long neck and small head emerging from the water. While skeptics have suggested it might be a dog swimming with a stick in its mouth, believers see it as early photographic evidence of Nessie. Not all sightings have been visual. In 1969, Andrew Carroll and Charlie Pine were using a submersible to explore the loch when their sonar picked up a large moving object keeping pace with their vessel at a depth of about 300 feet. They estimated the object to be 20 to 30 feet long. More recently, in 2011, Marcus Atkinson captured a sonar image of an unidentified object that appeared to be following his boat. The object was estimated to be about 5 feet wide and 75 feet below the surface. Atkinson said it was obviously a solid object and not a shoal of fish. One of the most credible modern sightings came from Gordon Holmes in 2007. Holmes, a lab technician, captured video footage of what appears to be a dark shape moving just under the surface of the loch. The footage, which has been examined by experts, shows an object moving at about 6 miles per hour. These are just a sampling of the hundreds of reported sightings over the years. While many can be explained as misidentifications of known animals or objects, others remain more puzzling. The sheer volume of sightings, often by credible witnesses, has kept the mystery of the Loch Ness Monster alive. With so many sightings and so much public interest, numerous theories have been proposed to explain the Loch Ness Monster phenomenon. Let's look at some of the most prominent. Perhaps the most popular is that the Loch Ness Monster is a plesiosaur, a marine reptile that lived during the age of dinosaurs. This theory gained traction due to the similarity between descriptions of Nessie and the appearance of plesiosaurs, particularly their long necks and small heads. However, there are significant problems with this theory. Plesiosaurs were marine reptiles, adapted for salt water, not freshwater lakes. Moreover, the last plesiosaurs went extinct about 66 million years ago. The idea of a small isolated population surviving undetected for millions of years stretches credibility to its limits. A more plausible biological explanation is that Nessie sightings could be attributed to giant eels. European eels are known to inhabit Loch Ness, and some researchers have suggested that exceptionally large specimens could account for some of the sightings. In 2019, a DNA study of Loch Ness found a high level of eel DNA in the water. While this doesn't prove the existence of a monster-sized eel, it does lend some credence to the theory. Other researchers have proposed that sightings could be explained by large fish species, such as sturgeon. These fish can grow to impressive sizes and have a somewhat prehistoric appearance that could be mistaken for a monster in the right circumstances. Skeptics, on the other hand, often point out that Nessie sightings can be explained as misidentifications of common phenomena. Waves, floating logs, or groups of animals like otters or deer swimming across the loch could potentially be mistaken for a large, unknown creature, especially in low light or misty conditions. Lastly, we can't ignore the possibility that some Nessie sightings and evidence have been deliberate hoaxes. The famous surgeon's photograph was revealed to be a hoax in 1994, created using a toy submarine with a sculpted head and neck attached. As we can see, there's no shortage of theories about what the Loch Ness Monster might be. This ambiguity is part of what keeps the mystery alive and continues to draw researchers and enthusiasts to the shores of Loch Ness. While the Loch Ness Monster began as a legend, it has become the subject of serious scientific inquiry over the years. Researchers from various fields have employed cutting-edge technology and methodical approaches to try and solve the mystery once and for all. In 1961, a group of volunteers formed the Loch Ness Investigation Bureau. For a decade, they maintained continuous watch over the loch during the summer months, using cameras and binoculars. While they collected many eyewitness reports, they failed to obtain any definitive evidence of a large unknown animal in the loch. In 1987, an ambitious project called Operation DeepScan used a fleet of boats equipped with echosounder equipment to sweep the entire loch systematically. The operation detected 3 unexplained strong contacts, which project leader Adrian Shine described as potentially being larger than a shark but smaller than a whale. However, no conclusive evidence of a large unknown creature was found. American researcher Robert Rines conducted several expeditions to Loch Ness between 1972 and 2001, using underwater photography and sonar. In 1975, he captured images that appeared to show the flipper of a large animal. However, subsequent analysis suggested these images might be of the loch bottom or other natural features. In 2003, the BBC funded an extensive scientific search of Loch Ness using 600 separate sonar beams and satellite tracking. The investigation found no trace of any large animated objects in the loch. The lead researcher, Ian Florence, concluded, "We went from shoreline to shoreline, top to bottom on this one. We have covered everything in this loch, and we saw no signs of any large living animal in the loch." Despite these extensive investigations, the scientific community has not reached a consensus on the existence of the Loch Ness Monster. While no evidence has been found to support the presence of a large unknown animal, the vast size and murky waters of the loch make it difficult to conclusively prove a negative. It's worth noting that these investigations, while not supporting the existence of a monster, have contributed greatly to our understanding of Loch Ness as an ecosystem. They provided valuable data on the loch's geology, biology, and environmental conditions. Whether or not the monster exists in reality, there's no denying its existence in popular culture. From books and movies to television shows, Nessie has fueled the imaginations of artists and audiences worldwide. The Loch Ness Monster made its screen debut in the 1934 film The Secret of the Loch. This low-budget British production capitalized on the Nessie craze of the early 1930s, depicting the monster using trick photography and an iguana. The 1970s saw a resurgence of interest in cryptids and the unexplained, and the Loch Ness Monster rode this wave of popularity. The 1976 documentary-style film, The Legend of Loch Ness, presented a more serious take on the subject, exploring various theories and eyewitness accounts. However, it was the 1996 family film Loch Ness, starring Ted Danson, that perhaps did the most to cement Nessie's image in modern culture. This film portrayed Nessie as a gentle, misunderstood creature, adding an element of environmental conservation to the legend. Nessie has also made numerous appearances in horror and fantasy films. Beneath Loch Ness and the Water Horse, Legend of the Deep both offered their own unique takes on the creature. The Loch Ness Monster has also been a staple of television documentaries, featured in shows like In Search of, and numerous specials on channels like Discovery and National Geographic. In literature, hundreds of books have been written about the Loch Ness Monster, ranging from scientific examinations to children's picture books. Notable works include The Loch by Steve Alton, which reimagines Nessie as a prehistoric predator, and The Curse of Loch Ness by Peter Tremaine, an almost Lovecraftian horror that imagines the monster as an ancient alien intelligence. Nessie has also made a splash in the world of advertising, becoming something of an unofficial mascot for Scottish tourism. The monster's image can be found on everything from t-shirts and plush toys to whiskey bottles and shortbread tins. As we conclude our exploration of the Loch Ness Monster, as ever we're left with more questions than answers. Is there really a monster in Loch Ness? Perhaps not in the way we think. But there's undoubtedly a monster of myth and legend that lives in our collective imagination, one that continues to draw people to the misty shores of Loch Ness, hoping for a glimpse of the unknown.